clearly. What's going on, guys? I am switching stuff over. Go ahead and talk real quick, Hustle. Let me make sure they can hear you.
Hello, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
so
I
you
hope
should be
all
able to hear
is
us out.
well.
We do have a guest. I don't know if he's going to show up because I think there was a confusion on time frame because he is on the West Coast, and I said 4:30. I need to remember myself to inform some of these people that we are on the East Coast. We ain't about that West Coast stuff. So he might show up during the podcast. It is what it is. If he doesn't show up today, we'll get him another time. Travis is a good dude. I liked him. I actually really wanted him on because I feel like Travis will be a good mixture with us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
sure.
at the end of the day, if it's something that he's got to be able to do, and something might have changed. He does work for IGN, so I'd assume things could change at any moment with him. And I tried it again, but I don't know. Maybe I have to restart OBS. I don't know. But we still here though. We still gonna get this show on the going, man. Regardless of what happens, the show must go on. As you can tell, I do have like this Genki chair. I don't know what happened, but my chair broke. Like the little part right here broke. So I have to replace this whole bottom piece. So I'm in this Genki chair that's uncomfortable. Thank God I only have to do one show. I hope to God I don't have to do IOP at this. Like, it's been sit for it, but you guys know how that is. It takes a minute. I don't know how long it's going to take before it actually gets here. People were commenting on this on IOP, talking about my Hero Cup. I like this. I might go get another one. There's actually a Dragon Ball Super Cup with Goku and Ultra Instinct. So I might do that, man. I might do that. But appreciate everyone coming through. It's the Addict Show where we talk about the past, present, and future of gaming. I got my co-host with me, Hustle and Motivate. What's going on, Hustle?
Oh man, not too much. I know you saw that, but for the people in the chat, hey, I just did like a video, so I'm kind of coming back to YouTube slowly but surely. Did a video about 7 things that we need to see in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. So y'all get a minute, y'all go check that out after the podcast, of course. Outside of that, I'm doing well, man. I'm just losing my mind. I'm playing. I'm getting ready to play Gears 5 for the first time, the campaign mode. As you know, I got like 130 hours in that campaign, and it kind of will lead us into a topic that we will discuss a little bit later in the show. How about yourself, man?
Doing pretty good, man. I've actually been playing. Pretty sure I could talk. I mean, the review comes out tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I should read the embargo. I don't know.
I think you should.
I'm playing. Yeah, I'm playing. There will be a review coming tomorrow on this channel. I think I'm allowed to tell you guys because it is on the VR. If you follow me on Twitter, I think you could tell what the game is. We actually had the developers on a couple weeks ago, so that's a pretty good thing. See, I can't even. This chair don't even latch here. Like, it makes it come back. So
Okay.
it's
Gotcha.
unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. But I appreciate you for coming through, man. You know, we already got 27 likes, 72 people in here. Hit that like button if you guys don't mind. It helps it get to the algorithm. You know, podcasts be struggling, man. The thing about podcasts is we don't have weekly videos on this channel for the most part. So to get the algorithm's almost impossible. But when you guys hit that like button, it really does help, man. It sure helps.
Indeed.
So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the expectations of Xbox in 2022. We did see. Did you see the meltdown this morning on Xbox Live Gold that turned out to be a completely overreach?
What, the $120 thing?
Yeah. So that turned out to blow up in people's face. Then we got PlayStation buying more. There's a lot of rumors out there going around that PlayStation buying this, PlayStation buying that. You guys know how I am when it comes to talking about acquisitions. For those of you that says it's a dead subject and people need to stop talking about it, my YouTube algorithm says different. You know, the best videos I have on YouTube, Hustle, have to do with studios being bought by someone else. That's the best videos I have. So
I mean, people want to see it, man. So now I feel that, and yeah, Jim Ryan, we'll get to that too. We'll get to that. I like that topic though. I don't got an issue with that.
And then we got the Unreal Engine 5 showcase. You know, I don't know, did you see the little showcase thing where they show Coalition, what certain games look like in next-gen hardware? Apparently, Crystal Dynamics is making a new Tomb Raider. You know, it's kind of crazy the change in direction that the Unreal Engine 5 is going. Like, how many games, even you see people like The Witcher changing, CD Projekt Red changing their engine to the not Cyberpunk, to Unreal Engine 5. So it's kind of interesting. You know, we got, obviously, if I see something unique in the chat or you guys super chat, we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about to a point. And obviously, I try to keep the show hour and a half to 2 hours. I never like going past 2 hours. Unless it's something like drastic, we might go over 2 hours, but we rarely do. But anyway, Hustle, what do you want to tackle first, man? You want to talk about, I want to save the Xbox one for last in case, you know, Travis pops in. But, you know, what do you want to talk about between PlayStation and Unreal Engine 5?
Well, since I just installed Gears 5, let's talk about that on Unreal Engine 5. Pardon me. Words are hard sometimes, y'all. My bad. So what I didn't know, and I'm glad you sent me this information beforehand. This is the same engine that they use for the Matrix. For that Matrix demo that had just came out. I think it came out in December or something like that. Or was it January? I'm not sure. But it came out late last year, earlier this year. The joint looked like a movie. So I kind of sat through it. I couldn't watch the whole thing because I was at work. But they said it was like 1 billion triangles and they can make everything like photorealistic. And they literally, I don't know how they phrased this or how they framed it really, but it's like you can have like a quick action, like a quick time cutscene, like during, you know, you can have like, it's like a quick action type thing during a cutscene. But I said, well, we already got that. But the way that it looked, like that Matrix thing, like, I'm upset that I missed it. I know Slow Mo played it. I think Solve had played it too. I'm not sure if he played it at it.
Yeah,
the joint looked crazy on stream. I'm like, yo, it looked like a movie.
it looks cool, but I'm done with let's make stuff look more cool. Let's make. I'm more interested these days in gameplay engines and features in the engine, such as like the Nemesis engine. I want to see more stuff like that. I'm tired of let's make stuff look prettier. Let's make fire look more realistic. Like, I want to see AI overhaul in general. I want to see AIs be able to, you know, pick up on, like, you know what annoys me when you play like a stealth game and they see you, they look for you for a couple seconds, and if you like get away for a certain amount of time, they just stop aggro completely. They go back to their normal routes, and I'm like, so I guess you guys think I'm dead. Like, I guess you guys think that I just left. Like you scared me so much I just bolted and ran. Like, that's what I want to see improve on. And I get it that that's going to take time. But it's just like, how much more time do we have to keep giving? Because it feels like graphics just keep improving, but nothing else around it. It's like the foundation's growing on a house. Like, we go to 3rd, 4th, 5th story house, but nothing in the house looks nice. Like,
oh no. Said we got a nice house, but the house got roaches. All right, Addict, hang on. Let me ask you something. Well, I feel like the reason why you see what you see, let me answer that question first, is because the market dictates that, right? The first thing that any of us see, I'm guilty of this too, the first thing that any of us see, oh damn, pretty graphics. Same thing with like Naughty Dog. Oh,
I
this
get
looks
it.
so realistic.
It's easier to
That's
sell
my main.
graphics than gameplay
Yep.
mechanics. But my thing is,
1,000. Yes,
my
sir.
thing is, can we try to at least get both, like to a
Well,
point? Like I honestly feel like Shadow War and Shadow of Mordor look good games. Like sure, they might have not been the greatest looking games, but I don't think by any means they were horrible looking games. You know, Cat Daddy said beautiful trap house.
facts. Hey,
Like,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I just prefer to have like, you know, and I was really annoyed the fact that WB they copyrighted they put a copyright and a trademark on the Nemesis engine and how it functions. And I'm just like stuff like that annoys me because stuff like that prevents us from going forward. Like it's like they showed up behind closed doors and just snapped their finger and froze that whole rail. When, you know, let's say Microsoft would have been able to incorporate some form of Nemesis engine to where, you know, during Halo Infinite, it worked their way up with the grunts and the Chiefs. Like, and then that weird Hitman system they had going on there with the target system, that could have been actually good. So,
I mean, I feel that, but Attic, you know, it has its pros and its cons. I'll say it's not even really a con for me, but like, one of the pros, if I created the Nemesis system, right, is that you got to pay me to use it. Like I created something. Like I literally created something, and I understand that we see the benefits of having something like open source, like an Unreal Engine, right? We see what the benefits are because we see like studios like the Coalition, for example. The people who made Avowed, they use that too. And a lot of different, you know, other studios use it too. But like when I see a Gears 5, it makes me hype for a Gears 6 because Gears 5 looked amazing. Even the multiplayer, and that. It actually got me. It got me back on a mission. I mentioned it earlier. It got me back on a mission to reinstall Gears, and I'm actually going to play the single player campaign for the very first time because I had played Hive Busters, and that thing was looking official, man. I'm not finna hold you. It was looking official. So I look forward to see what type of innovative stuff they can do with it. But I know you said you want the AI stuff. Hey, trust me, man. Me too. Because like, yeah, it's been times the way I've stealthed. I think I was playing Uncharted. I stealthed and then got away, and I got a trophy for that too. I stealthed, got away, and came back and got a whole trophy for it. But yeah, it's just like they just forget that you're there. Like, oh, we heard something, but we ain't hear nothing. I guess. Yeah, it was probably nothing, and maybe it was the wind. But now I feel that though. I feel that. But they won't innovate on the gameplay.
The interesting part is, let me go ahead and bring this over here. Now, for those of you that's seeing this, you know. Feel free to ride along there. Also, I'll send the link to you in the chat. This is the studios, to my knowledge, that's using Unreal Engine 5. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be like the end-all be-all, because obviously we know people are going to be changing this list. But what's really cool about this, let me go ahead and send you this.
Yeah, I'm watching it on screen too.
Hustle. Okay. So what I like about it is, you know, look at all the studios that are using this. You know, you got Supernova. I don't know who those are. Do you know who Supernova is?
No, sir. I have no clue. I have no clue, sadly.
Then we got Exile, which is interesting because they made Wasteland 3, Ninja Theory. So that's 2 Microsoft studios, 3 Microsoft studios, 4 Microsoft studios, 5 Microsoft studios.
Obsidian over here, right?
I think I already counted. Okay, let's do it again. Okay.
All right.
1 Microsoft studio.
There you go.
2 Undead Labs. I didn't know they were making that in Undead Labs. So we got 2 so far. 3, 4. I mean, there's clearly more. 4, 5. All right, so it looks like 6. So we got 7 Microsoft studios because Coalition obviously is working on it too. 7 Double Fine. There's just so many on there, man. Yeah, Double Fine's right here. So I mean, we got a lot of Microsoft studios using the Unreal Engine 5, which is interesting. How many PlayStation ones?
Haven Studios is the one that with Jay Raymond, correct?
So we got this VR studio. Remedy. Well, Remedy's not theirs, but they it seems like they've been doing a lot of work with them. But I think Remedy actually has a job with people now.
Okay.
They have a
Oh,
job with that that Asian company, Tencent. Yeah, what's interesting is that right here. So it's like two studios making Unreal Engine 5, just two, and one of them is VR. Now, obviously, Sony could buy some of these that's in here somewhere. But what's
mhm.
interesting is, I honestly feel like Unreal Engine 5 is going to be like one of the next key pillars in gaming. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for
And
sure, for sure.
it's it's kind of it's kind of crazy to see so many studios jump on it from Microsoft. You know,
Mhm.
a coalition, understandable, but then you got like CD Projekt Red switching to it. So I'm just interested to see if Sony's tools and engines are going to upgrade to the standpoint that Unreal Engine 5 is, if that makes sense. Because Unreal Engine 5 is a very strong tool. And I think one of the reasons so many people pick it too is it's easier to naturally gravitate with your talent with everyone else when you come from Unreal Engine 5 to Unreal Engine 5 and not necessarily come from anything after that. So, you know, if you
Mm.
work on like custom engines and then you go to that, so it's a little bit different for that. So, you know, that's the biggest thing that I really got going for when it comes to that. But, you know, what do you think is do you think that might help Microsoft? Because I do think that low key,
Mhm.
mid generation, like 2024, 2025, I think you're going to
Mhm.
start seeing a lot of games from Microsoft look really, really like detailed because so many studios are going with Unreal Engine 5. And I'm not saying that God of War's next game ain't going to look good. I'm not saying that, you
Mhm.
know, what's the engine that Horizon uses? Mm,
The
the
Decima
Decima
engine.
engine. I'm not
That
saying
that
that.
joint crazy. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not saying that's not going to look good, but all I'm saying is, are those engines going to be upgraded to the capacity that looks like Unreal Engine 5 is? And if they don't upgrade those engines to that fullest, are we going to start seeing a little bit more of a difference in? Because one thing that Sony's always had is they've always had the nicer looking games by far. But I
Hmm.
think that as long as the developers do they supposed to and do their job, you might see a little bit more of that scale come to the middle a little bit more. We got a $5 super chat from Dawn Otaku. They didn't even add Arcane and Compulsive are also using Unreal Engine 5. So that's two more studios.
Really?
11 studios are using Unreal Engine 5.
Okay.
It's insane.
Well, Attic, let me answer your question first. Well, before I answer that question, breaking news, y'all. Remedy, they're remaking Max Payne 1 and 2.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, so that was the thing.
And
As we
they're
were
all
talking,
using
I saw
Unreal
that.
Engine 5.
Yep, they're another one who's using that engine. As far as will PlayStation's engines evolve? Yeah, the Decima engine ain't nothing to be played with, ain't nothing to be trifled with anyway. And as we know, Gorilla they had help from Kojima with Death Stranding, because they let them use the engine. Kojima had found out some new things, and then they passed it back on, et cetera, et cetera. So those engines, in my opinion, will get stronger. Now that Naughty Dog engine, you play Last of Us 2, right? If you saw how I
Look
look,
good.
you know how I look. Yeah,
What is that
yeah. Let's
engine
not
called?
the Naughty Dog engine, apparently. Yeah, I know Jack can put me on game about it, but it's Naughty Dog engine. They got their own engine. Yep. So those things are just gonna grow in time anyway.
And
And
there
so
was a rumor like 3 or 4 months ago. I think you remember that Sony was looking to buy Epic, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
was saying because I made it a big deal. I was like, if they buy Epic, that's going to be a devastating blow to Microsoft. And people's like, oh no, it won't. Like, if Sony buys them and restricts the access that certain developers and certain publishers have with the Unreal Engine 5 and Unreal
Hmm.
Engine in general, like, imagine Microsoft just losing the engine that they've been using for years. Like, that would be devastating. Like, I don't even. That would be more significant to buy to buy Epic and make them lose probably the biggest tool that developers have right now, which is the Unreal Engine 5, than it would be to buy Activision take Call of Duty. That's my opinion.
Well, Attic, let me disagree with that. If they were, because that was a rumor that was kind of flying around. If they did buy Epic, they wouldn't restrict anybody from using their engine. Actually, it would kind of be like what we were talking about earlier in regards to oh my God, the studio just slipped my mind. With the Nemesis system, it would be something like that. They're probably just like, nah, you can use it, you just gotta pay. That's all. They just charge and they be like a little hefty fee. But like this is open source. Like, yo, I didn't know this, but when I first got on Steam, I didn't know that you can get that engine for absolutely free. You can get it for absolutely nothing. Like you can just download the joint.
It's not about whether or not a studio would do that. It's about let's put it this way. You know, most likely they would never do that because they want to make money. And I'm pretty sure that Microsoft and Sony would work together in some kind of middle ground to use the Unreal Engine. But if Sony bought them, they have every right to make that decision. And regardless what people seem to think, that is a decision that might happen. Maybe not 100% could happen. But if it were to happen, it would be a devastating blow to Microsoft. Imagine, like, I don't think they could stop the games that are currently being used for Unreal. Like, they would still make the next Gears because it's probably being made now. But after that, Microsoft would have to come up with another solution. And please, by all means, tell me other solutions that is just as effective as the Unreal Engine 5. And I know that we got the Slipspace engine, the Forza engine, the ID engine, but we cannot act like those are more diverse than Unreal Engine.
Yeah, we're not going that respect to the people who respect the 343, but that Slipspace engine, man, like and I get why you had to make your own engine. I get why you want to do that. But no. It's not. Like, certain things on a certain level. And yeah, we was talking about Gears earlier. Listen, man, you talk about the masters of the Unreal Engine, and that ain't me talking. That's Digital Foundry talking. You know, because I know y'all like John Linneman and Ledbetter and the rest of those guys over there, man. But yeah, that's crippling. Like, that's like a crippling thing. And I still think it's extremely dope. Like, what I saw from that whole presentation, though, Addict, because I never saw like the Matrix thing. Like, I saw bits and pieces of it, but I never like sat down and watched it. And then during that video, what they also show, they had like a multiplayer thing that was already like readily available. It was like, hey, if you want to make your own multiplayer, we just put it in. We got 3 different stages. They spoke on like difference with the sunlight, when the sun shines and the shadows move in different places. And if you want to like do a multiplayer map at night, you can do it at night, but you can have it's like a purplish orb that's like glowing on the inside, and the walls these were white walls, so the walls would change to the color of what the orb is. That joint was dope, man. I'm not no tech head like that, but it was just like sitting back watching that type of thing. I just can't wait to see what all the companies do with them, especially Haven. Since and I'm not making this a fanboy thing, but Jim Ryan and the PlayStation bought Haven off the rip, and if that's the engine that they're using, I can't wait to see what they're coming up with. Because if they bought them immediately and that's what they're using, and from the information that I gathered today, like, I think it's going to be a quite an amazing technical feat.
So like I said, people in the chat are bugging, man. Yeah, first off, man. I looked it up. Like, Epic is worth like $17 or $20 billion. Don't think that Sony, if they wanted to, they couldn't get that money. You know, sure, they might have to, you know, put out some loans, you know, probably borrow money from people like Tencent or something. I don't know if they mess with Tencent like that, but I'm pretty confident that if Sony wanted to, they could get that money. Now, it's not as easy as Microsoft. They just got to convince a few people to spend some money that's just sitting there, not doing nothing. But when it comes to Sony, if they wanted to, I think they could easily get that. Now, sure, maybe it won't be a clean buy. Maybe they would have to like merge with Epic or something. Like, but if they wanted to, they could get that money. And that's all I'm going to really state on that. You know, speaking of PlayStation, we'll go ahead and talk about it, man. We'll talk about, there's rumors everywhere, man. PlayStation fanboy, let me sit up. PlayStation fanboys have been bugging here recently. And I'm not, you know, apparently people are moving days of their podcast. You know, I think Greg Miller did it. They're moving it here, they're moving it there. Because apparently last week, all week, every day, it was every day, Sony's buying a new publisher. One day, I think it was From Software. Now we can talk a little bit about that. I don't know if we talked about it last week, but we can talk a little bit about that. They were supposed to buy Konami, not
I heard
and
that
then
too,
and
yeah.
then Capcom, and then I'm just thinking, wow, like it's like I said a minute ago, they could buy these companies. Like people need to stop having, just because you're not as rich as Microsoft doesn't mean you can't afford stuff like that. You could easily do it. And with the relationships they have with these companies, they could probably have a better chance at buying some of these companies than a company like Microsoft, because Microsoft is an American company, and I'm sure there's a lot of friction when it goes to the Microsoft and some companies over in Japan. So
Mhm.
it's it's kind of, I know, Cat Daddy. I think the go-to when it comes to buying a company is that you want to buy them what they're worth, and then you want to add what they would make in 10 years. I think that's the way it was described to me. Like, if they make $17 billion and they average like $2 billion a year or something like that, you would give them an extra like 10 to $15 billion on top of that. But I don't know how that goes. I'm not going to assume that, just like you guys are assuming Sony wouldn't do something like restricting access to Unreal Engine 5. Like, it kind of, besides Bungie, Sony has no problem doing stuff like that. Now, you can argue if they would do that, because it is an argument, and I would say there's a good chance they wouldn't restrict access to something like the Unreal Engine 5. But all I'm saying is, and if this is theoretical, because the whole damn scenario is theoretical, first off, if they
Mhm.
were to do something like that, I would think it would be devastating to Microsoft, because they would have to find new outlets to make their games. That's besides the point. I'm not going to read the chat anymore. All right, but when we come to the PlayStation, out of those studios, who do you think would be the best purchase for Microsoft? Out of
Mm.
From Software, Capcom, and Konami. And I think Square Enix was one of them too. I don't know. I don't know which days it was. Every day it was a new studio that's supposed to be buying.
Yeah, but I'm gonna. Well, hold on, Capcom. But I'll get back to that. Capcom is the best. You said for Microsoft to buy, or
No,
for
for
PlayStation?
PlayStation to buy.
Oh, Capcom hands down. Monster Hunter out just doing numbers, but I do want to say this. Shout out to Greg Miller. This ain't no slander, because but sometimes you gotta hold your L. He had a little gift, and I think he was pounding the desk or something. Said, I'm gonna push that. I'm gonna push back the podcast. PS, I love you, whatever. So I was gonna push it back to like Thursday because stuff might be happening. And I'm like, all right, well, what the hell might be happening? And then it wasn't just him, it was other people too. So I'm just looking around, and
I think that might have
you know,
been more of, Greg Miller did it, so I'm gonna do it too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I guess, and again, Greg, if you're more than welcome to come on if you want to, Greg. But yeah, sometimes you gotta hold that L. But that was just more of a thing to where it was like, I think a lot of times, and I'm not, I think a lot of times people hear stuff, and maybe I feel like it's a smoke screen for something else. Jim Ryan had came out on, I think it was one of the PlayStation podcasts, can't remember which one, but I saw that in the article earlier. The way he was like, yeah, we bought 5 studios in 2021, and we got 2 this year in 2022. We're gonna make some more acquisitions. So when a lot of people was just running around saying, no, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. I don't know where From Software came from, but if From Software is on that list, boy, the price of the brick went up. You know how much
by
money you got
far,
to pay them
that
now?
price to that brick went up.
What?
And not to
Oh
mention,
man,
Capcom will be mad expensive. Like, it
yep.
would be a very huge process for a company like Sony to get the funds they would need to buy these big, massive publishers. Like, don't think people realize how much money really that they have. Like, look, they have a lot of money, but when it comes to something like that, they have to really, I wouldn't say penny pinch, but it's something like you have to convince the board that you want to spend this kind of money. And when it comes to Microsoft, like I've said multiple times in the past, it's easier to convince a company and the board members to spend money that's just sitting there devaluing and cost too. Like, the cost of the dollar keeps going down. It's easy to convince people to do that than it is to convince people that, this might bankrupt your company if it goes sideways, or at the very least put them in a bad situation. So it's interesting for that. Now, I'm on the side that I think that Sony doesn't need Square Enix. I know people are in the chat saying, Square Enix would be a good buy, and I can understand where you're coming from. That I actually, if they were to buy any of these, I think Capcom would be the best choice because I feel like they would put a kind of a wall up on the fighting community. They would get Street Fighter. Now, obviously, there's still because Namco makes a lot of head-to-head fighters, and I'm hoping they're making the next Killer Instinct because there's a lot of rumors going around about that. But it would be interesting. Like, I'm just curious how much money Sony's willing to put out. Like, and people keep forgetting, like, they try to buy the company that the parent company to, what's that company called? That game called Warframe. They try to buy that company, they were in the bidding for that. They were in the bidding for WB Games, and we're talking deals that's in the billions, not the millions, in the billions, with a B. And they were trying that hardcore, but it's like, when you're in these kind of bidding rooms, you're in with Google, you're in this bidding rooms with Microsoft. Obviously, the person selling can pull out as well. Like, if they don't come up with something they want, they're clearly going to pull back themselves. So I honestly feel like Capcom would work the best for Sony because you're cornering a market that you don't really have. Now, you have it to a point because you own like Evo, you'll get Monster Hunter. Square Enix is going to put games on the PlayStation platform regardless if they go multi-plat for the majority of their games. I don't think you have to mess with that. But when you look over here, you got Street Fighter. You will get the Monster Hunter franchise. You'll get a lot of stuff. And I think Capcom makes Resident Evil. Like, imagine if Resident Evil went multiplayer. You know what would be crazy? I know this would never happen. But once that they bought Capcom and they let Naughty Dog make the next Resident Evil.
Hey. That
I honestly feel like Naughty Dog would make an amazing Resident Evil.
I mean, it's just that too. Capcom is the most like desirable pick. We didn't mention Konami whatsoever. Because
who wants Konami? I don't understand that. Like,
I saw it floating around. I was like, yo, why them? Like, of all people, like I get you got some IPs over there, like Castlevania. Like, I get if you want that IP, cool, but that nah. And for the record, y'all, they don't own Ninja Turtles no more. Because I probably would have said that because I'm a big Turtles fan. But no, they don't own Ninja Turtles anymore. Nickelodeon does. So that's not Konami. Konami's making the remakes and stuff, but that's in conjunction with Nickelodeon, by the way. So Nickelodeon owns them. So so Konami is up out of there, up out there running the best ones that you picked for that job because you pretty much got the king of the fighters. That ain't no pun intended, by the way. But you got the king of the fighters in Street Fighter. That's it. It's the pinnacle in a lot of people's minds. So you got them. And if I'm PlayStation, them the ones you make a play for. Hey, Attic, I don't know if you remember, 2012, Capcom almost went bankrupt. They almost went
did.
Under.
You know what's crazy?
It was almost over.
The 180 that company has done in the past few years. You got to respect them, man. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of Capcom games. Now, I like Resident Evil. I'm a fan of the Resident Evil franchise, the Resident Evil lore. I've played them all. I'm actually one of those people that feel like all Resident Evils are good. Even 6 is an okay game. It's not an amazing game. It's definitely one of the worst Resident Evil games. But I don't think Resident Evil 6 is dog. Like, it's horrible. I just think it's one of the things that maybe they should have focused on one of the stories and not 5 individuals or 4, however many was there. But it's just like, look, like, I think Monster Hunter is a pretty good franchise. I think they would do well for that. Now, I know obviously Nintendo, they're probably out there looking for stuff too. Cat Daddy, you could buy Konami for $40 and some Applebee's coupons. Yo, Cat Daddy, you got some Applebee's coupons? Yo, hit me up. No, I'm joking. Look, it's just like, I get so frustrated with people. It's just like, I don't understand why people find Konami so valuable. Like, I understand IPs are good, but clearly the company's not doing anything with those IPs ever. We've seen over and over again. If there's the one thing that Konami knows how to do, is drop the ball. And it's just like I just want to see their IPs be used. Like, I know a lot of people don't like this game, but I don't know why. It was Castlevania Curse of Darkness. It was It was a
Okay.
game that was about the people that worked with Dracula. They called them Innocent Devils. Like I really
Hmm.
enjoyed that game, and actually, the Castlevania TV show on Netflix right now.
I haven't seen it yet, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, the one of the characters on there is named Hector. He's pretty much he controls Innocent Devils. He's the main character on uh, Castlevania: Curse of Darkness. Like he's literally you plays him, and
Okay.
it's just interesting that look. I'm not saying that they're not a bad studio. I'm just saying in terms of gaming now, the studio isn't what it is. Like their IP is probably worth more than Konami.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, but that's the thing. Like when you get that for game preservation's sake. I mean, you could buy and have a Naughty Dog. You can have a Gorilla. You can have whoever work on the next Castlevania if you want to, or like you can. But you would buy them for that purpose. But like that's the least desirable one out the crew on that one. Especially when they just release their games. Like I said, if you're not gonna make nothing, if you won't make anything new and you just solely want it for the remakes and remaster, you kind of just you let that stay where it's at. You let Konami just do what they do. So yeah, no, but Capcom that's the front runner as far as I'm concerned. Because like I said, Monster Hunter, I didn't notice, but apparently that's their best selling franchise. Who
Yeah,
would have
Monster
thought?
Hunter does really good. Who owns Mega Man? Is that Capcom?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
think Mega Man needs something. Who owns Sonic? Sega owns
Sega,
Sonic.
yes.
Yeah, I've always personally felt like when it comes to Xbox, I'm more competitive. I want Xbox to buy Sega because I feel like
Mm.
that would close a lot of loopholes when it comes to Sega. When it comes to Microsoft, and then you could theoretically the sky's the limit. You could spin off the Sega into Xbox Japan. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sega is in charge of Xbox Japan. I mean, there's so much stuff you could do with that. If they don't get Sega, I think Square Enix would be the best studio for publisher for Microsoft to buy.
Mm-hmm.
If they bought Square Enix, which I don't know if Square Enix would ever sell to Microsoft, uh, but imagine if
Mm.
they bought Square Enix, they effectively took away every bullet in PlayStation's gun. Like,
Yeah, but well, at that point, yeah. If it ever does come down to it, we can speak on the Sega thing for a minute. If it ever does come down to it, then that means you'll have Persona Day One. Like, not even just Persona. Like I was playing Super Nintendo last week. I was playing a game that you may not have heard of, but I was playing a game called Super Widget, which is made by Atlas, which is I just dated myself, but that's fine. Atlas has been around for so long, and you do have a lot of history with that organization. So there's a lot that you can like draw from that. I would be focused on making like new stuff, if because oh my god, Microsoft has the studios now. They got the studios now, so they can divvy that up. And the same thing with PlayStation. They got the studios now. They want to bring something back. They can bring something back. I tell you this, but and I don't want to derail it too much. What Microsoft does need, they need their own version of a Blue Point Studios,
they
in
do.
my
They got a
opinion.
lot of stuff that I feel like they could really
Hmm.
use for when it comes to that.
Yep. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it seemed like that's like the next step for Microsoft because it seemed like they got everything else together. So this is what it is. It's just my
I
opinion.
do think I do think games like Resident Evil 2, 3, Final Fantasy 7 remake, I do think that they redid the term remake. I don't think you can get away with doing
Hmm.
remakes unless it's on that level anymore. Like now I feel like if you do something and it's not to that degree, your stuff is a remaster. It's not a remake. I don't care what you did. Like if you don't thoroughly remake a game, your shit's a remaster. Like
Yeah, they
in my
definitely
mind, it's
no,
like
no. I was gonna say no. Capcom definitely raised the bar when it came to that because, like I said, we was just talking earlier. They was on the brink of extinction, for lack of a better term, maybe lack of a better phrase. Like it's about to be over, and then they came surging back. So I don't know, man. I think if I'm no, but if I'm PlayStation, you get Capcom, and I want to drill that point home. That's who you get. If you don't get nobody else, at no other time, that's who you get.
I don't think that they need a studio like Blue Point, but I do think that they got so many studios. I feel like they can make their own games now. That like Sony has that studio to do exactly what that studio does. But I think when you got 30 plus studios, and including Activision, obviously could go through and it's not that. But when you got that many studios, I feel like you don't need a studio like Bluepoint because you always have at least 1 to 2 studios that once they finish that project, that you could present them with that. Okay, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I think that's the reason you don't really have to go into that. And, you know, you could easily, I think, me personally, I feel like it would be an amazing idea if you start co-developing games between the Microsoft studios. If you start having like Obsidian and Bethesda co-develop a game. Like, sure, you don't even have to have the main studios. Like, you know how they all like to say the B team, A team?
Yeah.
Start having B teams work with each other.
Yeah, how about that?
Because I feel like 2 B teams working with each other might make a better game than the A teams of both those studios.
I'll be willing to put some money up. They won't be able to, but who is that? Luke Skywalker in the yo, your name is crazy. You said you want to see a Diablo style Golden Axe. And listen, they tried to remake Golden Axe. I don't know if y'all saw it, but there was a playable demo out called Golden Axe, which, you know, they kind of made fun of themselves for canceling the game. It's like a 3-minute demo. I think it's not even one level. I think it's part of a level. Yeah, people don't want Golden Axe no more, man. And I'm the retro cat around this joint, but people don't want Golden Axe no more. That's all.
What?
I'm sorry, sir, but that's all. Yes.
You know, we've completely went off subject a little bit, but that's okay because this is kind of dry week anyway. What would be like your dream? Okay, I'm not gonna take old games because I don't really know too much. Like you, Cognito King, you guys know that old scene more than I do. But what would your dream studios remaking some of your favorite games be?
Oh, okay. In the dream scenario, I do want to see. Well, we're gonna see Perfect Dark being remade, but let's say the initiative wasn't making that game. For me, a Perfect Dark remake made by the Coalition in terms of the third person studio. So I'm gonna give PlayStation their credit too. For me, once again, GoldenEye made by Naughty Dog would be like my PlayStation like equivalent to that. Kind of the same game, but not really. Yes, but you would turn it into third person. Naughty Dog, I know for a fact, will have more of a narrative like lead for a GoldenEye game, which would be dope. It'll probably be their own original story, which you know we not Naughty Dog get down. They're the masters of storytelling. The Coalition, I would trust them enough for like fun gameplay, regardless of what people may think about their stories or whatever. That gameplay, and they know how to push a female character to the forefront, and they know how to make it dope, like they did with KD. So I would trust both of those studios with both of those 2 franchises. How about you, sir? How about you?
I would want. I think, what's that company called? The one that just made Psychonauts. I always forget their name.
Double Fine.
Double Fine. I would like Double Fine to be made by. I think they would make a perfect Banjo-Kazooie. I would like for them to make Banjo-Kazooie. I actually thought Dead Space would be someone to remake Dead Space. I've said it a couple times on ILP, but I would like Dead Space to be made by Ninja Theory. Because Dead Space is more about like the mental struggles of Isaac, like especially 2 and 3. Like, and 3 he's literally having full-blown episodes, and I feel like that would be a really good thing to go for because you could see Ninja Theory knows how to make that type of game. We got a $2 super chat from JC Carmario. I butchered it. We're gonna move right past that. FF9 remake, my dream. I think isn't that one of the leaks that happened that they're making a FF9, one of those AMD leaks or something. Travis is on his way right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think, and to be honest with you, we'll stay on this topic because I don't know if Travis wants to talk about the Unreal Engine thing. We might revisit that briefly. But, I honestly feel like they could make that. Now, Final Fantasy IX, the question I have to you in the chat, anyone that wants to, gravitate towards this question is, do you want them to go like a Final Fantasy VII type of way? Or do you want them to stay in that same kind of turn-based scenario with that they did in Final Fantasy IX? Because I feel like 9 had a very good turn-based structure, and 7 did too, but I feel like 9 had a really unique one as well. So I'm kind of curious if you guys want them to keep that kind of mentality or not. Definitely put in the chat there. But what? Any other studios you can think of? Any other games?
Oh, damn. You know what? But and I've always said this too when this question kind of comes up. I'll say Naughty Dog again, but I want them to remake Metroid.
Metroid.
Super Metroid. Yep. No, Metroid Prime. There we go. I want something with a story. Metroid Prime. I think Naughty Dog could do that. And they'll make it third person or whatever. But I would want them to do that. Yeah. If we really just running around here picking, ain't nobody else gonna rock with this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Animaniacs had a game on Super Nintendo. It was one of my favorite games. You know, I want who's the dude who just made Kirby? But Sakurai. I want his studio. I like for his studio to remake Animaniacs. Animaniacs was a game that was made by Konami, for the record. And one last one, man. Which I just had it. Oh goddamn, it just went away. But, that's fine. That's fine. But I kind of want some of the older stuff to come back. And Attic, I don't know if you know this. Animaniacs was one hell of a game, though. It might be before your time. Look, I'm gonna hit you with a download.
A lot of the things you talk about is before my time, fam.
I know, but you got to go back to it. It's a fun game, man. This is back when Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis had like 2 different complete versions of games because Mode 7 was the thing, and that something that Sega didn't have. iProcessing, like the iProcessor, whatever that was called, it was something that Super Nintendo didn't have, so they had to make 2 games. This was third-party companies making the same game. They had to make 2 different versions of it. Oh, bro, people will lose their mind if that happened today. I just want to say for the record, people will lose their mind if that happened today. Turtles in Time is another one that really comes to mind. They had whole different levels in there at it. Same game, well, not the same game, but like same franchises, right? Completely different levels. So, but I know it's just some of the ones that I want Naughty Dog to remake a lot of stuff. By the way, I think that they dope. I think that they'll give Samus
Naughty
like a whole lot
Dog
of
doesn't
character.
have to remake everything. Remember the Blitz football game?
Yeah, I was just playing.
Blitz football. Yeah. I remember playing that for like the N64. I'm not even a football dude, but that was pretty fun. I will say Blue Point does a really good job at remaking old assets to their original, but bringing it forward to a lot of people. I think they did a good job with Demon Souls. They did a good job with what's the game with all the Colossals and stuff?
Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah, I think they do a good job with stuff like that. But we could talk about machine games real quick. What have they been doing? Maybe we should keep that for when Travis gets here when we talk about Xbox. But I'm very curious what they've been doing. It's just like when it comes to these studios, man, like, just make good games. Like, I don't understand why people get confused when a studio doesn't like sell well. We've been covering the industry for this long. We can pretty much tell you when games aren't going to sell. Like, it's kind of crazy how much we can really see, like the drift in some of these games. I'm not saying these games are bad, but I am saying that it's like one of those things where it's like you look at the game, you look at a game on YouTube, you look at some gameplay on YouTube, and feel free to answer in the chat too. Like when you see this, for one, that game's gonna do bad. Like that game's not gonna do well. Like it's just like, and if we can see it, the consumer, how do some of these developers can't see it?
Maybe they can see it, but it could be a myriad of.
Maybe they're in a tunnel vision. They've been working on it so long.
That very well could be, yeah, but it could be a myriad of reasons. Like, a lot of things could happen due to budget constraints. It's like a real thing. Like your funding probably could get cut. It was like, hey, how are we supposed to have this animation that's supposed to be here? And it ain't there because we don't got no money. Like it could be one of those things. It could be turmoil in the office. It could be a ton of things. Yeah, this is the most setup. I like the setup, man. I don't know if you hear me in the background.
Well, I right now I have him maxed out until he gets ready. But I do enjoy things that go on. I personally just want to see more when it comes to like Playground making Fable. I think we're how many years into Fable? Like we need to see some of that too. But Travis is getting ready, you guys. Keep in mind, what I like about Travis's setup is I like those those Destiny posters on the back, man. That's what I
Oh,
like.
that's right.
You got the
All
little
right.
Yoda set up.
Listen, he
Look and getting the lighting right and everything. Got a
Yeah, I
$2
know.
super chat from Donna Talker. Remember, everyone said Game of GOG was gonna be bad.
Wait, what's GOTG? What
I
is that?
don't know. Game of. You got to tell me what you mean by that. Does anyone know what those initials are? I wonder if I could Google those. Would those initials show up?
It's the
Someone Google that and tell me if the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now look,
Okay.
look. When it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy, there was a lot of reasons why people thought that game wasn't going to do well. So I can understand the criticism for that game.
That game is in Game Pass, isn't it? At it?
Yeah, now it is.
Yeah. So I hear it's pretty good. I might as well go ahead and test that out. Speaking of Game Pass, while we await Travis's arrival here. Attic, I don't know whether to thank you on that, but I've been playing what's that? The Outer Worlds. Thank you for that. Like,
Oh, you like it?
yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I got Pravati. Yeah, so we about to go tear stuff up the way that we tear stuff up. So your template looks a little off. Hey King, that's we waiting on Travis to come in so we can include him in.
Yeah. The template's fine. I'm just waiting for him to pop up, and I'm gonna switch everything over, man.
Hello, King.
I appreciate you guys being so patient with me, man. I appreciate it. The videos behind your pictures.
Really?
No, I don't see it.
I'm looking at this live. All right. Well, look, I mean, it's just a black screen, but look, all right.
What's going on, Travis? Oh, he's still messing with stuff, man.
Okay.
here. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see you now.
Okay, cool.
Hey, you too.
So this is where we were, Travis. Because I kind of figured when we started the podcast, I was like, I think we messed up the time zones. I think we messed up
We
the
did, yeah.
yeah,
We
the
said
time
5
zone.
p.m. and we didn't talk about. I was like, I was actually free at 2. If I would have known, I could have hopped on. But yeah, I totally forgot you're East Coast, so I just didn't check.
Yeah, this is the superior coast, by the way.
Oh,
East
man.
Coast.
Okay.
We don't do that. We don't contribute to the West Coast times. We assume that you guys automatically going to think my time, because that's the chosen time.
I mean,
man.
if we're gonna go off of like GDP, I think like maybe you guys should come to our time. I don't know.
They said you're a little low, Travis.
Oh, am I? I can fix that.
And as you're getting that together, Travis, the only thing that I enjoy about West Coast time in particular
It's
is the fact
game
that you guys can
releases.
watch the game releases. You guys can watch the Super Bowl at a time and still be able to go out. And if you want to go out, you can go do that. Like, yeah, on the East Coast,
You guys
man,
got
that
a
stuff
little
at
bit of
11, 12 o'clock. It's
I will
not
admit, you
working
guys
as
got a
well.
lot of nice little perks for that 3-hour difference.
Well,
I
at
lived
least
on
in
the.
game in the games industry. It's nice because all of the servers are here. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
we get to.
They said you're still a little low.
Really? Okay. I can
Yeah.
fix that. How's that? Am I good?
Try turn up just a little bit more.
Hello.
Yeah, you're starting to sound better now. I'll
Good?
turn up the audio just a little bit too. So okay, what we was talking about, Travis, is we was talking
Okay,
about.
Sorry, I missed like an hour.
Oh no, you're
Ah,
fine. You're
that's
fine.
okay,
Only
man.
thing you missed is talk about the Unreal Engine 5 showcase. So I think
Oh, cool.
I think you dodged a bullet there a little bit. So we're talking about PlayStation. All these quote unquote rumors that's going on, Travis, with them buying this and buying that. I don't really want to talk about this. The rumors themselves, because I think some of them. Now I'm not saying that Sony isn't looking at some of these studios, but I'm saying that Sony's not buying all these studios. Like, from what I've been told, goes behind closed doors, is these companies are always talking. Always, like all year long, they're like, yo, they're trying to pull up, would you sell that for this? Would you sell it for that? But, most of the time, nothing ever goes through. So, I don't know if you kept up because, I know you work a lot over there. So let's talk about, they were supposedly going to buy, I think on a Monday, they were going to buy From Software. On a Tuesday, they was going to buy Capcom. And on Wednesday, they was going to buy Konami. And on a Thursday, they were going to buy a Square Enix. Now, out of all these studios, Travis, what studio you think would what's what I'm looking for? Would shift up the industry the most if Sony bought one of those studios?
a good question. So I guess my take on acquisitions is obviously I don't think acquisitions are particularly good for the consumer most times. But if an acquisition is going to happen, I would like it to be a studio that's been around for a long time and is sort of on its at what I would consider an acquisition stage where it's kind of stopped innovating and now it's sort of time to go, right? Like to me, the Activision acquisition is perfect because that company was bloated and it was dealing with problems from below with its own employees and it was dealing with problems from above from California suing it and all of that stuff. So am I still low, really?
Yeah, they saying you. I turned you up all the way too.
Yeah, I'm
They
pretty high over here.
they
So.
said you talking soft.
I'm talking soft.
Yeah, it's a difference. We'll hear you just fine because I can hear you just fine now. But for YouTube, I guess Zoom and YouTube don't really play nice together in terms of audio. So you might have to turn yourself up just a little bit.
Stand by.
Alrighty, appreciate you.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, what you're saying is acquisitions don't make sense until there is a point where the studios aren't doing what they should be doing naturally. So maybe someone needs to take over to help push that innovation along. Like,
yeah, it's like if somebody buys your studio, then probably all the people with like ambition are gonna go and they're gonna leave and start their own studio again. I mean,
they said they can hear you fine now.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So that's sort of the like their MO, right? And so to me, like I don't know if we talked about this, Attic, but like I was devastated by the Bungie acquisition because I honestly think Bungie got acquired at the wrong time. They were finally independent. They were growing as a studio. They're making all these innovations. And then what's the worst thing that could happen to you at that point in the studio or in a studio life cycle is you can get acquired by a large company that is probably going to cause some kind of brain drain because PlayStation's plan is basically with that studio, we're going to use Bungie's knowledge on games as a service to help us reach our goal of making 10 games as a service games in the next 5 years or whatever it was they said. And that means that there's fewer people working on Destiny, and there's probably going to be people leaving who don't want to be a part of a large organization and want to do their own thing. And so,
especially coming from the Activision thing, that they might
for sure
there might be a lot of people that still feel away.
Yeah, and they've never worked well with authority to begin with. They didn't work out with Xbox. Activision was tough, so I don't see it really working for them. And that sort of acquisition hurts me when I see a like studio in its prime or like where it's way too early, like Haven. That was a really weird acquisition by PlayStation where like they haven't even produced a game and you're like, why did you buy the studio? It just seems at the wrong time to do it.
So I was told something. I don't know. I got to ask you, is this what really, did you really say buying Haven is like pre-ordering the game?
I did say that.
Oh my God!
That's
if you think about it, they're kind of pre-ordering the studio. They saw a really nice trailer of what the game could be, but they haven't actually produced any games. They don't have a working relationship together, so it's sort of like they just pre-ordered a studio more or less that hasn't actually produced anything. So I stand by that. Honestly, I think that was a really odd acquisition in my.
It is. It kind of feels like they're not maybe necessarily worried that people might buy the studio. They're worried that if the studio takes off after its first game, then maybe the price, like Hustle likes to say, the price of the brick going up. So
sure, I would argue that it's worth the increased cost if you get to vet them for a while. You know what I mean? Because it's not like they're not going to make money off of that first game. Like PlayStation would make a ton of money by being their partner and their publisher on that first game, and then if it makes sense, you finalize the deal. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is there's certain studios I wouldn't mind Sony acquiring, and there's certain ones where I personally would be pretty devastated. And one of them is From Software. Like to me, you don't sell your company when you're like leading the pack in innovation, and you're sort of like From Software could stand to become, a large, powerful publisher / developer, and I would hate to see them get acquired at the time where they're like hot off the heels of Elden Ring and things are going great. Like to me, you kind of have to wait until they've settled and they are now sort of like a super established, kind of like the old guard. That's what the companies where I'm like, okay, they should get acquired. Like it makes sense at this point. They're not really innovating. And so to that point, I think Capcom probably is a good acquisition at some point. Konami probably at some point. Those sorts of companies, if one of those got acquired, I wouldn't really be surprised, and I don't think it would hurt the industry really. But a company like From Software, I can't see them as a not independent company with the way that
because
they're
you feel like they're still innovating their genre.
yeah,
they're still
just the
doing
way
good.
that the way that they exist. I feel like that's not when you sell. You sell when you're at the top of your game.
But then again, From Software, I think they're owned by someone, aren't they?
No, they have a publishing agreement with Bandai
Okay,
Namco.
so
Yeah,
I thought that someone kept saying on Twitter. Obviously I should have looked up facts before going along with the Twitter space to say
they do have a parent company.
Oh yeah, that's what they said. They had a parent company. So like to me, I think one of the only aspects that you would see a company. It's just like privately owned by someone. Some what you saw with the person who owned Minecraft. It's just like it's not necessarily about where they're going to take the brand. It's like unnecessarily like I'm getting old, man. Like
for sure.
I think it's time that I take my money and I ride into the sunset. And I think that might be a scenario that you might see with From Software selling, where it's like the price of the brick is never going to be this high ever again. Like, sure, we could go higher with another game that's after Elden Ring, but we can also descend as well. So it's just like maybe I should sell for the most I could ever make right now.
But do you think that Miyazaki's in it for the money based off the type of games he's played and his narrow scope of like his vision? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't really see that as the end goal. Like, I just they're like I don't know, they're crushing it with as they are right now, and I feel like part of their ability to just do so well is that they don't answer to anyone. They get to make the games that they want to make, and you do lose some of that independence. Like Bungie is probably the one example here where like they have their independence written into their contract, and it's probably not going to affect them too much. But even then,
as they say, I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either.
Because like here's the thing, like people keep telling me Bungie is the ones that decides things, and they're the ones that get the final thing, acting like Bungie themselves that can't be corrupted. Like, you don't have to convince all of Bungie. You just have to convince the decision makers at Bungie that the way they need to. And people's like, well, then they'll just cut. They sold themselves to them for a reason. And I feel like, look, the contract might say this, but when Sony is the one funneling the money, then you could easily Armstrong people. You don't want to do it. I'm gonna lower the money train a little bit. Like, okay, you got $10 billion last year. We're gonna dial it back to 2. You don't like that 2? Do what I say, and I'll give you 10 again. Like,
I'm not so worried about that. It's more that
I just think when you do that, you put pressure on the higher ups, and then you put pressure on the people getting money, and then the people getting money that the developers wanting raises, the people that they're trying to keep with retention bonuses. You got to keep them happy, and it's going to scriggle up the battery, and then they're going to end up going maybe not necessarily. I do think that the Bungie thing is going to benefit Destiny, because I honestly personally feel like
I don't.
Maybe Destiny, but I don't think Destiny. Let's say that I've brought this up, Travis, and we don't really talk a whole lot. I listened to you on Last Word, and me and you sometimes we go back and forth on what we agree on, but believe it or not, we have a lot of similar agreements. So I personally feel like, let's say Project Matter, I think that's what it's called, Project Matter, that takes off.
Matter is the code name.
I don't personally feel like maybe there's a scenario where if Matter is so successful, they start letting the gas off of Destiny to put if they're still independent, because they're trying to go hard in, and I don't know if they can realistically support 2 games as a service to that degree. I feel like one is going to get let off and the other one's going to get put on more.
So here's my problem with the Bungie acquisition, since we're in the thick of it, and it's sort of related to this topic of PlayStation acquisitions. My problem is that I don't think it's going to benefit Destiny. And the reason I think it's not going to benefit Destiny is because if you look at Sony's messaging, all their messaging is about improving their games as a service model. Yeah. And obviously, since they now own Destiny, part of their interest is in making Destiny good, but they also have this ambition for all these other games as a service games that are not Destiny. and they want to use Bungie's brain trust for that. And their incentives to keep people at the company aren't to keep people at Bungie. It's to keep people in Sony, right? In PlayStation. If you stay at PlayStation, you get your incentives. And so I feel like there's going to be a brain drain of people from the Bungie company to work on these other projects that aren't
How much
Destiny.
you want to bet Sony low-key poaches people from their own companies to
Yeah,
lead other companies?
I think they absolutely will. I think that was basically what they said in their press release. And then if you look at what Bungie said in the press, in that same press release, you hear from Sony, hey, this is all about our games as a service vision. We know Bungie does this well and we want them, right? It was an acqui-hire is basically what they did. And if you look at Bungie's messaging, it's all, we want to do movies and music, and Sony has that. It says nothing about Destiny. It really doesn't. It doesn't say like, hey, we're getting acquired because we think we can make a better version of Destiny.
We just
it
saw
says, it says we sold out because we wanted to drop a hot single on Sony Music. That's basically what it says.
And we just saw another example where, like, I get it that they want that cinematic way, but I feel like there's like 30 other companies that could have did that better than this company. And they probably wouldn't have needed to sell their soul to them either. Like, Sony, we see Sony pictures, they're hit and miss. And their hits usually had Marvel influence. Like,
yeah, I think for me, I think they should have stayed independent personally, because that was their messaging for years. After the whole Activision snafu, Destiny was bad for like almost 2 years. And during that time, they were like, hey, bear with us. You know, we're going through this whole thing where we got to get our independence back, and it's going to be tough. And I think as fans, we were like, all right, well, this kind of sucks, but we're with you, Bungie. And then we waited all that time, and then just when things were getting good, they sold it. And that pisses me off as somebody who stuck with, you know, lesser versions of Destiny for as long as I did. And now we're at this point where, you know, we're just right back where we started, basically. Hopefully they are. I just think that over time that gets eroded whether you mean to or not. So even if you are independent, after a certain number of years, everybody who's on the Bungie team will start thinking of themselves as PlayStation, and they kind of them retaining their independence is contingent on them maintaining their culture and everybody seeing themselves as Bungie employees, not PlayStation employees. And I just don't think that works long term. Long term, they start to think of themselves as part of the PlayStation team. And that's, you know, I just think 5 years from now, sure, I think it probably works. 10 years from now, I think that they maybe start making moves that aren't really Bungie moves and are more PlayStation moves, because after time, you know, a person leaves here, gets replaced here, you know, and then if you're looking at a whole different group of people who have never thought of Bungie as being independent, they just think of it as being part of PlayStation. And that's really the problem, is it's kind of a slow death by 1,000 cuts.
And plus,
there's also that
you can look at it from this aspect too, Travis, where let's say Project Matter does mad successful, and Destiny's still doing good, but it's not like meeting Sony's kind of like expectations in like 5-7 years. Like, who says Sony doesn't like, look, Matter's making us so much money, we'll just cut Destiny. Like, and at that point, Bungie's doing, like you said, Bungie and Sony's culture is like so mixed together, where there's so many people left and came where there's only a handful of people that's still part of the original Bungie crew. And if you look at it, we see the same thing at 343, where it's like a lot of the essence from Halo's still there, but a lot of the core people have left there. So it's like,
it's like that at any studio. Like, people don't stay at the same studios for 2 decades generally, and so this is it's sort of an inevitability. It's just you know, you definitely lose something when you become part of another organization, even if it says on paper you're independent. That's just not how it works in practice. And so I think Sony made out like a bandit. I think it was a really wise decision for them to buy Bungie. It's a great company. It complements perfectly something that they're very bad at, which is online service games. And I think Bungie gains very little, to be honest. They were already raising money. You know, they raised like a couple $100 million the year before. They're building their own campus. They have all this potential to expand. And I view them as having kind of given up so that they could, make a Destiny TV show. And that to me is super disappointing as somebody who was hanging out with this game for as long as I have. And, I'll still do it, but it's just, it makes me real nervous. And I'm really surprised to see the reaction from the community be, I'm pretty much the only voice that I've heard of who actually thinks that it was a bad call, which is super surprising to me.
As long as everything is done how Sony and Bungie claim publicly, I'll be okay with it. But I don't personally feel like it's going to go down that way. I feel like there's going to be a honeymoon phase where people are going to keep stuff to the straight arrow. Kind of like Activision. There's a honeymoon phase where like they didn't want to go too much into stuff, but once it comes down to where Sony doesn't like there's a difference between I don't like the way you're doing it, but I don't really care at that point. And then there's decisions where Sony's like, I'm completely against. We got to see how Sony handles. I'm completely against decisions.
Sure.
And that's going to be interesting, But let's talk about Xbox, Travis, because I know
Okay.
talked about PlayStation. Now, clearly E3's gone, which it's kind of interesting.
I hate it.
How is it like the mindset at a company like IGN with like an E3 entity gone? Is that like relieving, or are you guys like? How is that kind of mindset?
It's probably mixed. I mean, on like a personal level, the E3 events I went to were some of the most fun, times I've had with like the IGN team or other teams I've been a part of. And so I miss it a ton, and
I'm gonna
hope
miss
that
it too.
comes back. I hope it comes back in some form, just because it's such a cool, piece of game history, and the whole industry's there. You get to see all these competitors and rival publishers and game console developers and all that stuff, and all in one place and just hanging out, which is so cool, and I think healthy for the industry. So I will miss that. But on the other hand, IGN has benefited a little bit from E3 not being around, because we do our own mini like E3 event now.
Oh yeah, I do.
Like, IGN does a thing called Summer Games, and the last couple of years during COVID, we sort of took a lot of the steam off of E3, and we're like, we're just going to do our own like little mini E3 thing. So I think there's some people at IGN who are like, oh yeah, competition gone, it's all going to be us now. But we'll see if that actually happens. But I think most people probably are sad that this is going. I mean, it's good and bad. Will I miss the crowds? No. Will I miss all the people who didn't wear deodorant today? No.
Oh.
But I will miss the fun kind of gathering and the parties afterward and all that stuff. And yeah, it's sort of a bittersweet for sure.
Yeah, let me get this. Jared back with the 19-month message. All hail the ILP, salute Lord Addict, and hustle and motivate in the esteemed panel. Definitely appreciate that. So the reason I talked about that is, if E3 gone, I personally feel like it's going to be like a Phoenix thing where something's going to originate in its place. I don't know if it's going to be involving the ESA. I think that's the initials of them. I don't know if what's his name?
Jeff
Keighley going to do something and take its place. I do think people look at it from the consumer's aspect, where they're like, let's watch conferences, which a lot of these people don't even look at anything on the floor. Obviously IGN covers it, but a lot of them just look at the conferences and then they just take off. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I don't think people realize what E3 was doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
It was bringing people together, like, these companies like Activision, EA. Well, EA not to a point where. What's funny is people want to be part of E3, that E3 hype, but they don't want to be part of E3. That's why they do it in the same week. So
yeah.
I consider E3 mainly was the celebration of gaming in that week, where everyone, even if you weren't part of the E3 floors or you weren't part of the E3, conferences, you were still in that week to celebrate with your fans, with the industry. And I don't think people realize, when you have all these influencers, all these media, you got IGN, GameSpot, you got all these people in one place, it is so easy to get things done. And I don't think people realize that industry side, the developer side, we could push back the consumer side, the people at home watching, we could push that back, but that has to be replaced by something. I don't think that's going away. Something is going to replace that.
I hope so. And even if it's something that's 100% industry insider facing, because I know E3 in the final years was also invited members of the public in, which kind of made it a little bit chaotic if you were there to conduct business. But to your point, Addict, like, E3 wasn't just conferences. That was actually the opening of E3. After conferences, the rest of the week was about, we would get to see behind closed door demos and plan our coverage and kind of figure out which games were going to come out this year that were going to be hot and interesting to keep an eye on. And there's a lot of like good work that got done out of there. It's also just like a place, like if you're a dev, you probably wanted to go to E3 so you could rub elbows with other companies and look for like future job opportunities and kind of see what other games are out there and get inspired. And to your point, like, God, man, it just had such a important kind of place in the industry when the years when it was around. Now, you mentioned the ESA. I think the ESA was a pretty crappy organization, to be honest. They were started as like a, trade show organization that was a whole bunch of different shareholders coming together to sort of present the original mission was to present to the general public the games industry for people who weren't a part of it. So like, in the 90s when there was that whole video game violence rots your brain thing, and Congress was telling the entire world that video games had like a terrible brand and would make you like violent. The ESA was formed to sort of counter that as like a PR organization. Like, hey, here's what video games are actually about, and they're super fun. And look at this
somewhere
new game
around the line,
out.
like the message got lost. Like
somewhere along the line, I think it sort of just became like an OG like bloated
like a money
organization.
thing too.
Yeah, that told the world my physical address, so maybe I have my own qualms with them, but they. I just think
you were
that,
one of the people that got leaked with that whole thing.
Oh yeah, and people sent death threats to my house after that. So I got,
man.
Yeah, obviously I kind of think the ESA is incompetent just for that reason, but I do think that they sort of lost their way a little bit, and it's actually not that video games don't need PR. If you actually are somebody who pays attention to politics, you'll see that video games currently are going through some stuff at Capitol Hill that probably we could use an advocacy group for. But I just think that the industry sort of outgrew them, and so if there is a new E3, I hope it'll be formed under some new organization or something like that. Because I really don't think E3 is coming back next year. I think that's a load of
But what I've been told behind closed doors is like it seemed like ESA felt like they were irreplaceable. Like they would be around no matter what. I felt like the key thing they had for years is they had the ability to bring the industry together. For that week, for those floors, they had the ability to do that, but felt like they slowly started losing that ability. They lost Sony, EA, they lost Nintendo to a point where Nintendo was still there, but they weren't there. It's kind of weird how they were. They were on the floor, but they weren't like part of EA, like when it come to like the conferences and stuff. I felt like once they lost that, that's when they truly lost the ability to function. And I felt like it was arrogance to a point. I felt like the company itself felt like they were bigger than everyone, that they didn't have to make compromises with anyone. Letting so many people into the floors without any compromises to the media, to influencers. Like, it's like you could have did something as small as, sure, it maybe would have extended E3 to a point, but it's like having media and just having a day of exclusivity. You know what I'm saying? But it felt like they didn't care. They didn't have those conversations. They're like, you're going to listen to me because E3 is that place for that week, and no one's going to take that. And then the pandemic happened, and it's like it accelerated the death of that company.
Yeah, it was kind of already on a downward slope. Did you ever go to E3, Hustle?
Nah, I've never been. I was gonna say it kind of was on like the decline anyway, because I know we saw Nintendo. Nintendo was like the first ones to like completely pull out of E3. And I think they were like the pioneers. Well, just the conference. Yeah, they were like the pioneers.
They actually had
and the
a huge part of that floor every year. A huge part of that floor.
So you guys would have to explain that to me. But I remember like when E3 was going through its troubles before, sadly, everybody's addresses were leaked. They were talking about bringing in celebrities. It was like LeBron James and like having his own booth and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, that's not
that
even
was their
like
attempt
what
to
that
try
is.
To bring more visual to the event.
Yeah, I also feel like it just takes away. But shout out to IGN, Jeff Keighley. Like, you guys have your own things going, which easier for me to watch. Like I see when IGN goes live is right there. So like it's a cool thing. No, I've never gone to E3, and Travis, one of the opening statements that you made about E3, I wouldn't have made it in there because you said people stink, man. I'm not gonna be able to function. I'm not gonna be able to move around. Like
it's pretty bad.
It was bad, dude. And then the good news is if you were press, you got to skip lines, so you didn't have to kind of like go through it, but it was still just like shoving through people's faces so that you could run like half a mile across the show floor and then get to the next like meeting room you had to be in for your next appointment. Like I would do like 15 appointments a day at E3, and so you're just like doing like a 32 hour minute like demo, and then you sprint to your next one and get there like just in time. It was so brutal. But yeah, to what you said, Hustle, which I think is an outsider's perspective, is pretty interesting, which is the conferences that didn't happen, like Nintendo didn't do their conference, which you view as them like pulling out of E3, are actually different than them pulling out of E3 altogether. What they did is they just said, we're not going to do a conference.
Yeah, and they actually pulled away from that entirely. They were doing directs.
They were just doing directs. So we're going to go do our own like presentation, but they still bought a huge lot on E3 and had all their games there and were showing them to press and developers and fans who showed up. And like, they had these massive like theme park like mazes you could go through.
Huge, like I can't.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can bring.
Remember the Breath of the Wild one where you had like they basically put like Hyrule in the E3 like show floor, and you like walked through it and stuff. So they were still doing E3. They just decided that they weren't going to do a press conference, and I think
they were actually there more than anyone else was. And I was actually told that when Sony pulled out, they bought a lot of their floors too. So
they did, yeah.
And that's where like
Sony and EA were the ones who actually pulled out of E3. Period. Like not only did they not do a conference at E3, but they didn't buy real estate on the floor, which I think was a tactical error in some cases, just because they sort of weren't part of that conversation those years.
I'm going to send you, Hustle, what the floor looked like in 2018. That was the year before. That was the last year. 19 was the last year. 18 was the year before that. But the crazy part is like that's probably the reason that I got really upset with Sony, like because EA at least was a couple streets down. You know what I'm saying? Like they were in the facility. Nintendo, they're like, look, like we're not going to do a conference because we're switching how we do things, but we're still going to make sure our fans and the people that enjoy our product, they have something there. Sony's like, we gone. Like, we ain't doing no conference. We ain't doing nothing that week. We ain't having any kind of venue around that corner. We ain't doing nothing at the E3 show floor. You see us in a couple months. Like, and I felt like that was a low key, like disrespectful. Like, it's just like you can be there in some form. Like Microsoft was doing the Galen Center to a point. Like they were still on the floor, but they were doing like press stuff in the Galen Center. Like what's crazy is Microsoft went out of their way more to have more of a middle ground for press people than the actual people who owned E3.
Yeah, which is weird. They had like their own like little separate area just for the press so that they could show the stuff that they weren't ready to show the public yet. Which is something that ESA probably should have set up themselves. I feel like they should have had a fan gathering and then just like the main E3 floor gathering, because it's weird.
That was my actual question, because both of you went to E3. Like, how did they not separate y'all from the rest of like everybody else? And also, Travis, I think is very disrespectful, the fact that you have one meeting here and then you have to run down, I guess, like the East Hall to catch another meeting. Like, there's no other way that they could have like maneuvered that a little bit better for everybody else. So like, how does that work?
It was there's two big buildings and there's like a little thing connecting them, and obviously there is other stuff in other parts of the place, but they would literally have Travis being one, because what was worse is when you had to go to another building.
It sounds like a government building.
Sometimes you would have to run off of the E3 show floor and go to like some other conference area that they had booked separately because there wasn't room on E3. So
you talking about like the floors, the building, the stuff upstairs?
Well, it's like, if you went to PC Game Show, that was in a different theater, and Ubisoft did their conference in a different theater that year, and so you had to go to like this different part of town. I had to like
Ubisoft was like a little bit away too.
Yeah, it was like a little bit away. So that was, and they also showed some of their games in a separate building. So it just depended on, you structuring your day like this game of Jenga, where you're trying to like make everything match up. And am I going to have enough time to get to this appointment? But that's actually fun. But to answer your question about the fans, the reason they didn't have separate spaces for it is because originally E3 was only for insiders in the industry and
Right.
GameStop employees for some reason. A lot of them came, like 10,000 a year.
Now that I remember.
Ten thousand
yeah.
a year.
Yeah, because GameStop has a lot of employees. It was like a lot of them, but then one year they decided, okay, we're gonna let fans come in, but we're only gonna sell 10,000 tickets, and then the next year it was like 25,000, and then it just kept going up. So I think originally it was just, hey, we have more room on our show floor, like let's include more people, and then after a while it was just like, okay, dude, this is too many. Like it's just super crowded, and there's no like place for them.
They turn into
not to be elitist, like, oh, get these peasants out of my game conference, but it did make doing business more difficult. Like it for sure did. So.
And that's why I always said that they needed to find a. I'm not like King David. Like King David's like, keep the peasants outside. Like I don't think that mentality was the right. Like you could keep them in, but you need to have a better middle ground. Like let's give the media like a certain section of the floor maybe, or let's give the media a day. Because there's a difference between someone doing this for a living and someone doing this for a hobby. Like they're just there. They're not even doing YouTube channels. They're just there as exhibitors. They're just looking at stuff. And people have this like weird conception to think that this is about playing games. It's not. Like you are never going to play games for the most part. You might, unless you're media had a little bit more, hands-on with certain things. But for the most part, if you came there as an exhibitor, you will play maybe 1 or 2 games a day.
For sure. Yeah. I played a little bit more, I guess. Like I did participate in demos, but it wasn't like you had time to enjoy it. It was like, all right, let me hook up my capture equipment, and
then you was writing pretty much the entire time there, writing notes.
Play it. Yeah, and then if you had like a 20-minute break, like IGN had a separate like war room that you'd run into, and you just like slam your laptop down on the table, and you'd like try to get a preview or like a video posted, and then you would run back to the show floor to do something else. It was just constant kind of running around situation. But I actually love that, and I will miss it if it never comes back. But in terms of, I think the headline here is that the ESA did not really evolve with the industry and in the way that I think they should have to make E3 continue to be relevant. And I think that showed to a certain extent, which is why you saw certain pieces of it falling off near the end, and then eventually, now it's gone altogether. So I hope it comes back. I hope it comes back better. I'm gonna miss the hanging out with Snoop Dogg and Keanu Reeves and the people I got to hang out with at E3.
I think something will come into place. And for all I know, I do think that Jeff Keighley has a particular advantage right now because he does have relations with the people that did leave. Like I think he might be able to use that gauntlet to bring the industry back together. I just don't know if he could do it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference between having relations and convincing everyone in the room that you need to be the place to go. So I don't know if he'll be able to do that, but that's not really, kind of went on a side tangent on E3 there. My question to you, Travis, and Hustle is, we got Microsoft's coming up. They obviously they're going to have their E3, whatever they're going to do this year that would have been in the place of E3. What do you think realistic expectations needs to be for this conference or whatever they do with this type of event? We'll go with Travis first. What do you personally feel like we need to see at this type of event?
Yeah, I think it depends on the messaging, right? Like Sony, I think, has decided that they're not really going to they're kind of moving to the Nintendo Direct model, right? They do these little small state of plays. And I think that sometimes they let the messaging get away from them about what's going to be included in the state of play. And then people are like, oh, this is going to be an E3 press conference. And then they talk about like one game for 20 minutes and that's it, right? And then people end up disappointed. So I think messaging is everything. If Xbox says, hey, we're going to go and do, a couple small events that focus on certain types of games. We're going to do like a little first party event, and then we're going to do an indies event, and then we're going to do a third party event. Then I think the expectations probably need to be tempered. But if they say like, hey, in lieu of E3, here's our press conference, then I think the expectations are rightfully going to be really high. And I think Microsoft has every tool in their belt to meet those expectations. Bethesda used to do their own press conference at E3, and now they have Bethesda as part of their press conference. So that already increases the kind of potential there extremely. If if they combine shows with Bethesda. They could let Bethesda do its own show. I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made there. They're their own company with a whole portfolio of their own games, so I could see that.
Yeah,
for
I actually
sure.
heard there's like a little friction between the companies on how they handle that going forward. So it's going to be interesting how they do that. I'm interested in like when Activision's brought in the fold, if that goes through. Like, are they going to let them do their own thing? Like, because Call of Duty's still a thing, and
Yeah,
even though Call of Duty's huge, the ability to announce the new Call of Duty is huge by itself. So are they going to let them do their own thing, or are they going to take the big stuff from both portfolios and have one show with it? Like, it's interesting how they do it.
yeah.
Hustle, what do you think? What is your expectations with it?
Well, honestly, Microsoft needs to do what they did last year. In terms of, Attic, we did the live reaction. It was Game Pass. It was like 27 of these 30 games are in Game Pass. They won. Those things are gonna have to hit on that level. We've been talking for quite some time, pretty much ever since I've been here, about 2024, 2025, 2026 for Microsoft. They need to roll some of that stuff out early, like a Perfect Dark, because we've heard things about Perfect Dark and all like the turnover rate over there. So I would like to see something from Perfect Dark. I would like to see something from Avowed. I know you're a Fable cat, so I would like to see something from Fable. So like all of the newer stuff, or all of the like the 2018 announcements up until like 2020, I like to see gameplay for a lot of that stuff. For me, I don't necessarily think I'll get all of that, but I feel like you gotta rebound, like because the show last year was really good. The show, like they had one misstep, and I think it might have been a year before. One of you guys correct me on it, but it was whenever PlayStation and Xbox was getting ready to drop them new consoles. PlayStation had that press conference, and then Microsoft had the third-party conference that didn't go over so well with the people.
That was the year before last.
So that was the year
like
before.
Assassin's
Okay,
Creed. And so I think
Right.
that's my point. Is like, are they going to do one big show and basically make it a replacement to E3, or are they going to do a few different shows where maybe they talk about third party and then first party
They're
and
gonna
then
name
Bethesda and then Activision? Like,
Travis,
are they
you know
going to
what
break it apart?
They're
Yeah.
going to say Xbox presents Activision conference. Xbox presents.
I could see
Bethesda
that. I
conference.
could see that.
Mhm.
And if they do that, I think people need to change their expectations.
Yeah,
because-
drastically.
Mhm.
Drastically.
but it's sort of on Microsoft to market it the right way, because if they
Right.
say, if they just put an Xbox logo and a date and no details, people are going to be like, oh shit, this is it, like it's going to be Starfield, and they're going to announce the new Xbox Series X2 and all this stuff. And I think they just need to decide what their strategy is. Personally, I would love it if they united behind one big like 2-hour show.
That's what
and
I was
just
about
blew
to
our
ask.
minds. I would love that. I would
Mm.
love that. But I think the industry is actually going the opposite way, because you see Nintendo Direct being successful. You see Sony doing kind of a piecemeal little state of play presentations, and I could see them breaking it apart into like
I
4
do
or
too.
5
I
presentations.
think that's
and doing smaller
realistically.
stuff. I think
is
that's
gonna
probably what they'll
happen.
do, and I think if they do that, everyone's going to be disappointed because everyone's expecting it to be a blowout like E3. So
Well, I
it's
wanted to mention that they will more than likely break this up into parts because Travis, Attic, too. News cycle 24 hours, y'all. So you know how it go. Xbox would normally go first, PlayStation would come and then just take all the Xboxes shine on like that Sunday with that Sunday night. However, they used to like structure those conferences before, right? Now it's more like, all right, we got one day, we got one day, we got one day. Yeah, they'll spread that out. And as far as the Bethesda thing, I don't think that they even touched that, or Activision either. I think with not the initiative, but like with those big studios, publishers like that, they're gonna have them run themselves anyway. So they'll probably just be business as usual, in my opinion.
Activision didn't have its own conference, and they actually used to put all their games into other shows.
Yeah, they've.
Oh, you're right.
They would put Call of Duty in the Xbox shows during the 360 era, and then they moved it to PlayStation during PS4. So I feel like they either have to give Activision its own show, or they're going to have a huge section of their presentation that's like,
that's going to be
you know what I mean? Because like,
what they might do, Travis?
Are they going to talk about Candy Crush? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's enough. There's enough. Their portfolio is so big now. I mean, Minecraft alone has its own conference. It has its own like E3 like event, and I feel like if they really wanted to, they could do that with a lot of their properties. Just give it like their own event, but. I don't think they're going to. I think Lord, you're completely correct. They're going to do like 4 or 5 small shows, and everyone's going to complain about all 5 of them because they were missing a piece. You know what I mean? That's probably what's going to happen.
You know what's a realistic thing that I just thought they could do is stick to what's new, like what's coming out now. Like kind of like they're doing Starfield. Like let's say Overwatch might coming out this year or early next year, and like
No
instead
way we
of
see that game.
huh.
No way we see that
Well,
game.
no, but
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying like next year.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying this happening this year. Like Starfield's this year, where they're focusing on Starfield. Games is coming out this year, next year. You know, they might have another conference to show future stuff a little bit more, where it's like an Xbox where like Beyond thing, and then next year you'll see whatever's coming out that year. Maybe I don't think Avowed would come out that year. We might see something on. I think that might be a possibility where it's like, look, this year we're going to show Starfield, we're going to show Redfall, maybe depending if that gets pushed, and then next year they're going to show games coming out next year in the holiday, the year before, and then maybe they'll have like, because right now I feel like the best thing they can do is show better outlets to their games in general, kind of like a Nintendo Direct, something like that, and then they use these shows to show what's coming out this year and next year, like gameplay, you know, big lights of stuff. Like I think that's something they might do, because if you split up an Activision, a Bethesda, you're gonna have issues on, is this studio, if this publisher gonna have something they could show, is anything realistically able to show, like we just mentioned of Activision, or we gonna show Call of Duty and a little bit of Overwatch, like, and then just call it a day.
It'll
like
be weird.
I feel like
It'll be yeah, it's gonna be really
splitting
weird
things
this year.
up can be headaches by itself. But if you go with like, okay, this year, Overwatch is ready next year, like maybe just show. Let's let that be one of the pillars. Let's let, you know, maybe the Outer Worlds 2 might have something to show, because I've been told they're a little bit more in development than people think. Maybe show something on that. Like maybe keep it 2022, 2023 up to E3 or whatever they do next year, and then next year you show the next of next year and up to the year after that.
Yeah. I think the other thing we haven't talked about is the possibility of them basically just save everything for Gamescom. Gamescom is actually
maybe XO
is actually blowing up.
Maybe they actually, because I don't know how you feel about this, Travis. I've always felt like Video Game Awards is one thing. I still think you do too much with the Video Game Awards, because I feel like Sony, when Sony does an event, like an event where you know something relevant's coming, it generates so much buzz, so much hype. And I feel like Microsoft gets some of that, but the reason they don't get all of that is because Microsoft will literally show Avowed, they'll show Grounded, and then 6 months later or a couple months later, they'll show the Xbox Series X and Hellblade. Well, it's like if you would have brought that to your own show, I feel like throughout the years, you would generate that type of hype, because people know Microsoft stuff is going to be on their stage, not the Video Game Awards, not Gamescom. It'll be on their stage. Do you think that maybe they should start doing that, since they own so much stuff?
Microsoft has a stage at Gamescom. They get their own conference. It's just that in the past, they've always relegated like what I would call the B news to Gamescom, right? Like I remember one year they showed a whole bunch of new stuff, and then the next Gamescom a couple months later they showed like Crackdown 3, and they did like a 30-minute demo of that. And so I feel like it always ends up being their B show. So Gamescom is thriving. It's still happening. It's a huge fan event.
They could show Activision stuff there.
I could see that being kind of their new E3 home, but I do think that they need something. I think you're right. Like they can't just show everything on other people's stages. I agree that the Game Awards is like not really the right setting for a giant press conference or anything like that. I don't think that they should use it for that. They have made some really
they could
cool
debut like gameplay stuff there, something little. Like,
yeah, or that they should.
Because I feel like if you're showing something for the first time, that needs to be on your stage.
Yeah, they showed the new console at Game Awards.
That makes sense. I will give them that. That made sense, because they were coming off of a generation that wasn't too kind to them.
Yeah.
You need to generate as much hype. You need to do stuff different. That makes sense.
Yeah. I also think that it helps when you get outside of your own bubble, because if you're announcing something that you think is going to appeal to not just people who care about Xbox, then that's when you do it at the Game Awards. Because if you do your own show at the Microsoft Theater and it's called a Microsoft Presents event, only people who care about Xbox are going to be watching it. But if you showed it at the Game Awards, PlayStation people will see it, Nintendo people will see it. And I think that's a pretty big deal if you're trying to expand your user base, which they obviously are in this Game Pass era. So yeah, I would be interested to see that. There's lots of different ways they could approach this. I guess we'll just see who's who's going to make the first move at this point. We're still waiting for one of these guys to announce sort of an E3
I think we'll
replacement.
probably get some Xbox will announce something before. So
you have to imagine that they knew E3 was going to be canceled a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
because they
I
didn't
was
rent the
getting
space.
whispers months ago, so there's no way that these companies didn't know. It'll be interesting that now you bring it up, Travis. Like that would be very effective for Microsoft. To have people like companies like IGN, GameStop, like always writing about them. GameStop, they announced the next Call of Duty. They announced, next year they announced Overwatch. They maybe announce Avowed gameplay. Like this year they show Starfield for the first time. And people, this isn't that much time between each other. Let's say they buy something like Sega in the future or something kind of like a Japanese outlet. Tokyo Game Show, they're showing their games there. Like, then they do their own XO. Then they do the Video Game Awards. They show something that they like. That's consistent coverage all year long.
Yeah.
Give you plenty of stuff to write about, Travis. Plenty of stuff to write
exactly, which is what I need.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, Hustle? How would you, let's break this down a little bit. How would you want them to handle it for your personal preference, and how do you think they're going to handle it? Like as far as their coverage?
You know what? Travis, you might hate me for it. I mean, look, if they cover it one conference over the next one conference per day over the next 5 days, because I mentioned this earlier, like the news cycle is 24 hours. Like I can't make a video about something on Wednesday on something that happened Monday. Yeah, people might go to it, but it won't hit the same if I do it the same day, right? So they'll probably have everything split up. As far as having everything in other places, Travis, you had brought up the point earlier. Microsoft has to appeal to different audiences. This is why we see like the Xbox Series X premiered at the Game Awards. Same thing with Hellblade, because everybody from everywhere is watching the one big thing out the year. It's like it's kind of is like turning itself into like the Super Bowl of gaming too. So no, if I'm Microsoft, man, you just take your time. Not like Jeff Keighley type of time, because the summer games never ended that year that he did it. But no, just take your time and say, hey, we're gonna start June 10th to June 15th, and just have it like that, and everything would kind of work itself out. So yeah. But I really don't have no better ideas. But like as far as like I know you had talked about XO, I wouldn't permit nothing at XO, man, because Xbox fans they already got y'all. If you're an Xbox fan, they already got you for XO. So I wouldn't even take it there. Everything else though, like it's in Gamescom, that's out in Germany, correct? Did you guys correct me on that one?
Germany, yeah.
That's the one that holds like 500,000 people.
It's huge, and it's because it is a fan event. It's not like E3.
I mean, well, I would say this then. There are certain things that I would premiere out there and at the Game Awards, as opposed to just having it on like the XO stage, wherever they choose to have it. Like it was.
You're talking about Xbox Celebration,
right? Xbox Celebration, yes. I would prefer to have things in the bigger venue. Yeah, you have something for your fans, but I'm putting my stuff on the biggest venue possible. I'm finna put
that's
biggest,
exactly what I think, and I think that was the one strength of the ESA is that it created the biggest venue possible for all players, and so it gave everybody a chance to show their stuff in front of the widest audience possible. And I feel like now, if everybody goes and does their own small little thing, it'll end up making everybody speak to only their own echo chambers. So it's like the Xbox people will know what's going on with Xbox, PlayStation will know what's going on with Sony, but like the average gamer who just logs on once a year to E3 just to see what's going on in general and doesn't really care about one console or publisher over another, they won't really have a place to learn about all the news that year. And that I think is troubling, which I have hope that IGN Game Fest will be that place, right? That would be awesome for us if we could create the largest stage using our huge audience. But I personally don't see that happening. Sorry, IGN, but I just don't think that I think it's really hard to create a coalition that involves like all the companies, because some people are just
ESA probably naturally had it because they were so old in the industry, and
they were made up of people in the industry. So the ESA was actually made up of like all the biggest publisher and developer stakeholders. So like Phil had a spot on the board, and Sony people were on the board.
EA totally had to have left at some point. They're like, it's
actually,
like
you know what? EA was on the board. They just didn't buy stage space. Correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I'm pretty sure that they were still a part of the ESA until the end. They just were like, we're part of the ESA, but also Rebel. We're doing our own thing on E3. So
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. People in the chat are coming after me saying that I'm flip flopping on my. Look, I'm not saying I still want Microsoft to consistently, because I feel like there's a realm where inside Xbox and a Nintendo Direct both can exist, especially of how much they own. Like, people don't realize the amount of content that Xbox owns now. Like, it is absurd. Yeah. You can't realistically show all that in a couple events. Like, you have to have a lot of them. That's why I feel like inside Xbox, restructured, don't bring it exactly how it was, where they use that to outlet to show Ninja Theory gameplay, to show Fable gameplay, and they use the Nintendo Direct to show, Game Pass announcements, indie games that come out, and then they show Japanese games coming to the platform. They could use that for that. Then they use the shows, the XOs, their own conference to show the big content. But obviously, like you guys said, they need to be everywhere. But the problem is with being everywhere is you're not building your own platform to show where you need to be. When Sony does an event, sure, there might be more world accepted, but we can all agree when Sony does an event, everyone's covering it. It doesn't matter who it is. Everyone feels like they have to be part of this event. Now, I'm not saying Microsoft can never be there. Part of the reason Sony's there is because they've already did their footwork. And I felt like Microsoft was attempting to do their footwork, but the Xbox One generation put them back a couple notches where they had to restructure in some areas.
Right.
But, I appreciate everyone coming through, man. We could talk a little bit, Travis, I'm sure that you've seen the Unreal Engine showcase stuff. Was there anything that stood out to you?
No, I mean Unreal Engine's a hell of an engine. I'm impressed by everything I've seen, except for I still haven't seen a game made in it. So excited for that. What game was it that announced that they were going to be the first one to publish an Unreal 5? Oh, you know what it was? It was the Matrix.
Yeah, I wasn't really impressed by that.
Demo.
I wasn't impressed by that.
Well, I was impressed by certain aspects of it, but you could tell that the people who made it were people who knew a lot about the engine and not a lot about game development, which is kind of how I feel about people who work at Epic in general. Like whenever you see a demo, they're I don't know. That's just if you see the demos that they make, it's like, okay, you're really good at showcasing stuff.
I got into a little debate with the chat. I don't know how you feel about this, but because I remember a couple months ago there was rumors that Sony was trying to talk to Epic about buying them, and I was saying that,
Epic is too big.
Epic's too big, Epic. But I was saying that if Sony was able to achieve that, and obviously people in the chat confused what I was saying. I never said that Sony would ever do this, but if Sony's able to achieve buying something like Epic and just started playing hardball with the Unreal Engine, I don't think people realize how much power Sony would have with that engine. Like,
for sure.
We
could never buy it though.
Huh?
They could never buy it.
I feel like they could if they 100% was the entire company of Sony was behind trying to buy Epic. I feel like they could come up with that money.
I'm gonna fact check you here.
Okay, fact check me, because I feel like it would be one of those scenarios where it would be a huge bet, but I feel like they could, even if because the PlayStation name's a very profitable name. I don't think that they could easily get those loans.
Yeah. So Epic is worth $28.7 billion, and Sony is worth 128. That's tough, dude.
That's what I'm
really
saying. Like,
tough.
I'm not saying that they would buy that. I'm saying that it's like one of those things where it would be a hard sell, because it's not like something Microsoft could buy that, and if it would flop or it wouldn't do as well, it would annoy people, and there would probably be a lot of upset people, but Microsoft would eventually level out. Sony would make that kind of commitment. I don't know if they could bounce back from it very easily if it didn't go the way they wanted.
Here's the thing. Just looking at that as a proposal, if Epic got bought by Sony, I feel like the loser would be Epic, because Sony would gain a really cool tool set.
Huge advantage.
They would have lots of new customers using their engine. It's a very ubiquitous engine. Like the vast majority of companies use it if they can afford it. But what would for sure happen is Sony owning it would mean that other leaders in the space would have to emerge, because there would be people who don't want to build on Epic if it's Sony owned. Nintendo would abandon it if not that they use it really for any of their projects, but they would.
A lot of Microsoft uses that engine.
Microsoft uses it, and Microsoft would not use it anymore. And
you don't think that they would try to work something out with them?
I don't think so, because they already just acquired their own engine when they bought Bethesda.
Yeah, but
And it's a damn good engine.
it's a good
Doom,
engine,
dude.
but I've been told
It's a
by a
damn good
lot of
engine.
developers that like it's not as diverse as something like Unreal.
Of course it's not. Of course it's not. But you think Microsoft would see the long game, as they often do, and they have the war chest for it, which is invest in your own engine. We can build our own thing and just make that the new Epic. And or there would be a third party, which I think is probably more likely. A third party would probably just hop in and go, okay, well, now that Epic is owned by PlayStation, there's this new market of people who probably would prefer to use another tool.
I do think that.
I think there would be plenty of opportunity to do that. So I just think Epic would never want to sell, because they like the fact that they're making money at all customers.
Sony would have to come with them with such a big bag that they could probably want. Like I think, like if
Epic's here's the reason I don't think they can afford them. If Epic's current valuation is $28 billion, you're buying it as Sony. You have to pay a premium on top of that, because you have to pay more than the company's worth in order for it to be sold. So let's call it like 40 billion. And then on top of that, you have to, if you're the Epic people, you're trying to think out, all right, well, if my business now is going to be based on only selling to Sony and probably losing a lot of business with Microsoft, then you have to build that extra cost into that. So you're looking at like a $50 billion acquisition would be my guess. And that's like half of Sony's worth.
Yeah,
you don't acquire a company that's worth.
Sale.
They don't have enough liquid to buy.
They would have to
sell
stuff. They would have to take out loans. Like, imagine if they jumped out the building like that and the industry didn't react the way they thought it would. Microsoft was look, because they would have to probably, like, Coalition would probably finish out making like Gear 6 with that. Like, I feel like there would be enough time between these games being developed where Microsoft could have some form of answer to the Unreal Engine. Like, they don't have to use it anymore, but I would think it would be a devastating hit to Microsoft that would take a lot of effort and finances to find an alternative solution to not using the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think they would use it in the meantime, though. They don't have a problem giving money to.
And
to
Microsoft
Sony,
probably has solutions to something that, like, if that ever happened too. Like,
for sure,
they probably have something like in the background, but nothing being done. Because I'm pretty sure they have Plan B for a bunch of different things.
Travis, before we head up out of here, I do have a question. In regards to UE5, what game or what game franchise are you looking forward to seeing the most from using the UE technology?
You're gonna have to remind me some of the ones that have announced they're using it.
Okay, so
Stalker 2 is using it. That looks really great.
Coalition has it.
Coalition has it for Gears.
For Gears, I want to say Remedy has it. Haven Studios, the Jay Raymond. Her team, they got
studio is.
Yeah,
so,
don't nobody know, but they have it. I had that list earlier. But there are a ton of different like.
Well, I'm a huge Gears fan, so that's huge.
Okay,
they've been on Epic for a long time for obvious reasons.
I actually felt like Gears 5 was such a breath. I didn't like Gears 4, and I didn't really like the original trilogy too much. Like, I thought they were okay games.
Wow,
but it's just like it was one of those things where I could never fully play one of those games. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I've never liked the corridor shooting where you clear a room, you go to the next room. I felt like they did it very well, but I felt like Gears 5 gave me the openness a little bit that I didn't experience with previous games. And I know a lot of people.
Gears 5 is definitely like the best one. I'll agree with you there. But I love all the Gears games. I just think they. If you play Gears 1, like the year that came out, there was nothing like it. It was such a unique and like they just did everything right. So yeah. I think probably just looking at the comments, people are posting things. I'm going to go with Hellblade 2. I
actually
really
think a lot holds on that game. I think Starfield's important, but I think Hellblade proves that the original acquisitions they made has going to have fruit to it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Starfield makes a good game. That's just Bethesda making a good game. They've been known to do that in the past.
Correct. It doesn't prove anything about Microsoft's stewardship of their company. But if they can elevate Hellblade from 1 to this crazy thing, it's gonna be nuts.
Outer Worlds 2 is gonna be key to that too, because that's it. I think.
What was it?
Hellblade. Outer Worlds 2.
Outer Worlds 2.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Obsidian. Although Obsidian always makes good games, in my opinion.
I think sequels
when they have a budget
to those original studios is going to be important because it's showing that Microsoft intervening and buying these studios actually helped those studios, and they didn't make the same type of quality product. But I appreciate everyone coming through, man. We pretty much had the exact show. I do apologize. I need to start being very vocal with the Eastern, Pacific, and Central. No, because most of the time
if you would have just put EST on 5 p.m., I would have.
You know what's funny? I usually put EST in the promo stuff, but I don't know. I was just. I got off this morning. I made the promo. I was so tired. I went to bed. I didn't even think about it.
I looked at our Twitter DMs and I was like, did he tell me it was EST and I just missed it? And
that was entirely my fault.
That was me. I totally forgot you're East Coast. I need to remember anybody I talked to who's on Iron Lords is East Coast.
Yeah, we're all East Coast. We're all East Coast. It was Travis, what
it's outsourced. You're stealing Pacific jobs here.
Where can people find you at, man? You in a lot of podcasts lately, man. Like tell the chat.
I'm only in 2 weekly. So I do a weekly Destiny podcast called The Last Word,
which is on this channel.
Which is on this channel. It's on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for those of you that hang out with Lord.
The chosen.
Chosen timeline, and then I do a show called Bitcast, which is just about the games industry in general. That show is with Ainsley Bowden, who's an industry vet, Richard Hogue, the lawyer.
I'm sure
gamer.
That's a very interesting chemistry set.
It's a very interesting, and we get into debates. Me and Hogue, we're very contentious. I get into arguments with him and win. I win against a lawyer because I'm just that cool.
All right.
So you can watch that on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. I think there's a little bit of overlap with your guys' show, the Iron Lords podcast. But we do that on Sunday mornings. And then also you can read all my stuff on IGN.com. Did a review of Tiny Tina's recently, a preview of a game at Game Developer Conference called Superfuse, an upcoming Diablo-like ARPG. And then I'm reviewing something else I don't think I can talk about yet, but I'm hating that game. So you can find all my stuff on IGN.com and follow me on Twitter at TyGuyTravis if you want to hear my hot takes and Fast and Furious.
He's got a lot of hot takes. I don't know who's got more hot takes, you or Hogue. I think it's pretty close. Like I really do.
Hogue. It's Hogue. It's Hogue, dude. This guy, I swear to God, he says stuff just because
I feel like he always wants to be on the other side. Like it doesn't matter what it is.
He does. Because I don't say things because I'm contrarian. I have opinions and I just think people don't think things through sometimes. But Hogue is just like out here slamming on all the things you love and loving all the things you hate. It's weird, man. It's real weird. So
where can people find you, Hustle? I saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Couldn't really resonate with much of any of it because I didn't really play those old games. But what I will say is I didn't know that game wasn't going to be co-op, like online feature. Like right there, I pretty much dropped the game mentally right there when I saw that.
Well, apparently 4-player online co-op is a very hard thing to do if you play Scott Pilgrim, and I got the hoodie on. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, they had trouble pulling that off. So it's the thing with 4-player co-op that always seems to be an issue. 2-player co-op seems to be fine. You can find me at Hustle and Motivate, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. But don't worry about Twitch so much because I ain't going to really be there. I'm working on my next video. The Last of Us. The Last of Us will, my second favorite game of all time, and I can't wait to get into that one. Hey, Travis, before I go, the Bitcast, is that the SG Bitcast?
Yeah, Season Gaming.
That's what I thought. So I'm going to make sure I listen to you guys on iTunes. That's why I asked, sir.
Please do.
Got you.
Yeah, it's fun. If you like Hogue, he gets to break down and sort of just talk about other stuff that he doesn't do on his channel, which is really cool. I think we have a really unique show. It's different than other stuff you see on YouTube.
Yeah, Hogue is an extremely dope guy. Plus, I know you say he likes to argue a lot. Well, he is a lawyer, right? So I mean, that's kind of how they get down.
And I was pre-law, and I'm a Jew, so we just argue all the time. It's just lots of arguing, man. That's just all it is. So
well, I look forward to it. You guys are on YouTube as well, correct?
We are, yeah.
See, I follow you guys there too, and that's how I knew it. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but I want to make sure that everybody else knows it. Thank you all for joining us, Addict. Once again, you always put me around the legends, man. I really do appreciate everything that you've done for me. I'll be back sooner than you think. The Last of Us video is coming up. Another Turtles video is coming up when the Konami collection releases, or when the Cowabunga collection releases via Konami. So I look forward to that. No, I'm about to really have some fun, and I'm about to really push for 1,000 subs this year on YouTube. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna be playing that Turtles game at PAX this year.
Man, don't rub it in my face, though. Don't do that to me.
I'm gonna try to get you a code, man. I'm gonna talk to the devs, try to get you a code.
Is this a Ninja Turtles game?
Yeah.
Shredder's Revenge. Yeah.
Nice.
Game of the year, by the way.
Your video. I'll be like, look, man, he makes content, everything, man. Let's get Hustle a code, man. I'm gonna Oprah Winfrey.
When does it come out? I'll have to try to review it. Maybe I can start.
Well, no, yeah. They announced I think it was PlayStation's State of Play. I think I'm not sure, but they showed a trailer, and they showed some gameplay, but they didn't announce. They showed the year of 2022, but they didn't announce a date. And they also showed the year for the Konami for the Cowabunga collection, which is 2022, but they haven't announced the date.
All right. Well, I have a rule that if they give me a year but not a date, it's not coming out as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? They gotta give me they at least have to give me a month, or it's 2023.
Especially I'm a little bit more lenient if it's like spring 2022 or something like that, because I feel like they pick the beginning a little bit.
That's a good point.
But if they say holiday 2022, I'm like, that's 2023.
No, dude, that's 2023. Yeah.
Or
if they just say the year, that's pretty sus in my book. That's like, all right, dude, you're probably coming out in 2023. So
yeah,
I'll ask Dan if I can review it next year. Well, how about that? Let's do that.
Mm-hmm. I look forward to the review. Let's go.
But and this is Addict. We definitely catch the IOP this week. Let me check and see if we have a guest. I obviously ain't gonna tell you the guest because Cognito would kill me if I told you the guest.
He keeps it secret. Huh?
We
think he'd want to cross pollinate on your other shows.
Yeah, but we like to keep that like exclusive. We are having someone. I don't know if he's officially coming. I'm not going to say that because I don't know. Because sometimes when we have certain people from companies on, we don't know if they're coming on as like an official part of that company. That makes sense. Like sometimes there have been people in the past that like, look, I can come on, but I can't come on as a part of the company, and we can't really talk anything about the company because PR is sometimes, especially going into like around this E3 kind of timeline, certain companies are very strict on like interactions with, especially podcasts. You guys don't realize how hard it is to get some of these companies like Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo to allow executives and people like that to come on live. Because they usually don't like live. They like pre-recorded where they can check to make sure nothing crazy went down.
For sure.
But, I appreciate everyone coming through, man. You could definitely follow all these people on Twitter. I will put them in the description below. You can find me on Twitter, too, at Lord Addict IOP. We'll be back next week. I think I have another guest in mind. I'm going to tell him Eastern, though. Definitely, I'm going to tell him Eastern.
Yeah. Have me on again, and I'll be here for the whole show. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
yes, sir.
We'll definitely get you back on. I mean, you was pretty much for the whole show. We were literally just talked about who we wanted to make games for, like, the first 20, 30 minutes of the show. But I appreciate everyone coming through, man. And until next time, this is Gaming Addict, Hustle, Motivate, and Travis.